On the sweltering morning of July 19, 2004, a frantic husband dialed 911 in Salt Lake City, Utah, claiming his pregnant wife vanished during her morning jog through Memory Grove Park. Within hours, hundreds of desperate volunteers flooded the steep, pine-covered trails of City Creek Canyon, calling out for 27-year-old Lori Hacking. Search dogs scoured the rugged terrain, while helicopters equipped with thermal imaging swept the skies above the canopy. Yet, as the massive community effort intensified, seasoned detectives at the command post noticed the husband displaying a flat, eerie detachment, unbeknownst to the exhausted searchers combing the ravine. The missing woman never set foot on the trail that morning. Rewind to the early 2000s in Salt Lake City, Utah. The city rests in a sprawling valley bordered by the towering, snow-capped peaks of the Watch Range to the east and the shimmering expanse of the Great Salt Lake to the northwest. In this close-knit, faith-oriented community, reputation and family milestones dictate the social rhythm. Lori Soares belonged in this environment. She possessed a radiant, genuine smile and a fierce work ethic. Raised in Orem, Utah, Lori grew up surrounded by a strong, supportive family. She met Mark Hacking during their high school years. They attended Orem High School together, navigating the same social circles. Their relationship blossomed through youth group activities and shared community events. Mark appeared charming, outgoing, and devoted to Lori. They married in August 1999 in a grand, joyous ceremony. To the outside world, they represented the ideal young couple embarking on a promising future. Lori dedicated herself to building a stable foundation for their life together. By 2004, the couple lived in a modest brick apartment complex near the University of Utah campus. The neighborhood featured wide, tree-lined streets, neatly trimmed lawns, and the constant hum of college students traversing the eastern bench of the city. Lori worked full-time as a trading assistant at a Wells Fargo securities office downtown. Her colleagues admired her meticulous attention to detail and her positive attitude. Every morning, she navigated the grid-like streets of the financial district, taking immense pride in her career. While Lori earned the household income Mark supposedly pursued his undergraduate degree in psychology at the university. He regaled friends and family with tales of his rigorous academic schedule and his impressive grades. He claimed he achieved a near-perfect grade point average and graduated with honors. Lori celebrated his academic triumphs, believing her financial sacrifices paved the way for his success. Their apartment filled with moving boxes during the summer of 2004. Mark announced his acceptance into a prestigious medical school program at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Lori felt ecstatic, anticipating the cross-country move and the realization of their long-held dreams. Adding to the joy of the impending move, Lori discovered a major personal milestone. She learned she was 5 weeks pregnant with their first child. She cherished this development, visiting specialized clinics to ensure the health of her developing baby. She purchased maternity literature and began planning the nursery they would build in North Carolina. Lori shared the news with her closest confidentes, her voice trembling with excitement over the telephone. Her mother felt overwhelmed with happiness at the prospect of a new grandchild. Lori spent her evenings packing their belongings, folding clothes into cardboard boxes, and dreaming of the life awaiting them on the East Coast. She updated her co-workers on the relocation logistics, counting down the days until their departure. Her entire existence centered around absolute trust in her husband and the bright future he promised. She had no reason to suspect the foundations of her reality consisted entirely of elaborate fabrications. The man sleeping beside her crafted a massive, suffocating labyrinth of lies. The walls of that labyrinth were about to collapse. The elaborate facade shattered on Friday, July 16, 2004. Lori sat at her tidy desk inside the Wells Fargo office tower in downtown Salt Lake City. The building featured expansive glass windows overlooking the bustling city center and the distant mountains, She picked up her telephone to make a routine administrative call to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She needed to verify financial aid information and housing details for Mark, the administrator. On the other end of the line paused, checking the incoming student database. A moment later, the official delivered a devastating reality check. The university possessed no record of Mark hacking. He never enrolled in the medical school. He never submitted an application. The revelation struck Lori with the force of a physical blow. She broke down crying at her desk, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the deception. Her concerned colleagues gathered around her cubicle, witnessing a composed professional unravel in real time. Lori gathered her personal items, abandoned her shift, and left the office in a state of shock. She drove her vehicle through the sun-baked streets of Salt Lake City, navigating the familiar route back to their apartment. The drive offered her time to process the chilling realization that her husband lied about the core of their future. Upon returning to their residence, Lori initiated a tense, agonizing search for the truth. Over the course of the weekend, she confronted Mark and demanded concrete answers. She dug into his records, contacting the University of Utah to verify his undergraduate claims. The resulting discoveries dismantled her entire reality piece by piece. Mark did not graduate with honors. He dropped out of the psychology program years prior. He spent his days wandering the campus, playing video games, or sleeping in his car while Lori worked long hours to support them. Every tuition check, every celebratory dinner, every late-night study session represented a calculated theatrical performance. The man she loved orchestrated a daily charade for years, manipulating her trust with chilling ease. The atmosphere inside the apartment grew toxic and heavy by Sunday, July 18. Lori realized the scope of his pathology went far beyond a single lie. She faced the terrifying truth that she carried the child of a stranger. Late that evening, she sat down at a small wooden table in their living area. She took a pen and drafted a heartbreaking letter to Mark. In the note, she detailed her profound sense of betrayal and stated she could no longer remain in the marriage. She articulated her intention to leave him, unable to build a family on a foundation of chronic deceit. Lori left the letter on the counter where he would find it and retreated to their bedroom. She climbed into their mattress, exhausted from the emotional torment of the past 48 hours. She drifted off to sleep, believing the confrontation marked the end of her marriage. She possessed zero awareness that her husband viewed her departure as an unacceptable threat to his public image. In the dark silence of the apartment, a predator calculated his final lethal move to keep his secrets buried forever. The morning of July 19 brought sudden chaos to the typically tranquil environment of Memory Grove Park. The park sits at the mouth of City Creek Canyon, a steep, densely wooded ravine jutting directly into the downtown grid of Salt Lake City. Detectives arrived at the scene and immediately established a mobile command center near the entrance gates. Uniformed officers crowded off the trailheads while search and rescue coordinators divided the rugged terrain into strict grid sections. Investigators pulled Mark aside to establish a precise timeline of the morning. He claimed Lori woke up early and drove to the park for her usual run, a routine she maintained for her physical fitness. He stated he woke up later, realized she remained missing, and drove the streets looking for her before dialing 911. Experienced detectives listened carefully to his narrative, noting a distinct lack of genuine panic in his voice. His demeanor remained unnervingly flat, his answers rehearsed and devoid of the chaotic emotion typical of a grieving spouse. The investigators requested his permission to search their vehicles and their apartment, to gather items carrying her scent for the tracking dogs. Mark agreed, projecting the image of a fully cooperative husband desperate to find his missing wife. He maintained his composure, banking on the massive outdoor search to distract law enforcement from the truth, while volunteers combed through the thick underbrush of the canyon. A sudden tip diverted the attention of the patrol divisions. Several park frequenters reported seeing a transient individual exhibiting erratic behavior near the canyon entrance that same morning. Given the isolated nature of the upper trails, investigators recognized the potential danger posed by an unpredictable stranger. Detectives temporarily shifted vital resources to locate this individual, understanding that random encounters in urban parks sometimes ended in tragedy. Univamed officers canvassed the homeless shelters and soup kitchens scattered across the industrial sectors of the city. By the late afternoon, officers located the man matching the physical description provided by the witnesses. Detectives brought him into an interrogation room, pressing him for details regarding his movements through the canyon. The interrogation quickly yielded a frustrating dead end for the search teams. The man possessed a verifiable alibi, proving he occupied a completely different sector of the city during the exact hours Lori supposedly went running. Investigators corroborated his story through security footage from a local convenience store, officially clearing him of any involvement. The tracking dogs deployed at the park entrance repeatedly failed to pick up any trace of the missing woman. The undeniable absence of physical evidence on the trails led investigators to a chilling conclusion. Lori never arrived at Memory Grove Park that morning. Detectives immediately redirected their focus away from the sprawling canyon and scrutinized the movements of the husband. They requested financial records and bank statements to verify his activities during the critical hours before he contacted emergency services. A meticulous review of his transaction history revealed a massive, undeniable red flag. On the morning of July 19, just hours before reporting his pregnant wife missing, Mark visited a local furniture retail store. Detectives drove to the commercial district and interviewed the store manager, presenting a photograph of the suspect. The manager confirmed Mark entered the showroom that morning and made a highly unusual purchase for a man in the midst of a frantic search. He bought a brand new, premium queen-sized mattress. Investigators secured the paper receipts and the store surveillance footage, documenting the exact timestamp of the transaction. The security video showed him browsing the aisles with calculated calm, selecting the item and loading it into his vehicle. This discovery shattered the timeline he provided to the police command center. A desperate husband searching for his vanished wife does not pause to go furniture shopping. The realization sent a wave of dread through the investigative team. The purchase strongly indicated a deliberate, methodical effort to replace compromised household items. The true location of the tragedy was not a public park, but the private sanctity of the marital bedroom. Armed with the retail receipts, detectives secured a search warrant for the apartment near the university campus. Crime scene technicians arrived at the modest brick complex, carrying heavy cases of specialized forensic equipment. They stepped through the front door, entering a living space cluttered with moving boxes and packing supplies. The technicians bypassed the packed belongings and proceeded directly down the narrow hallway to the master bedroom. Inside, they found the brand new mattress resting on the bed frame exactly as the store manager described. The investigators carefully removed the fresh bedding and directed their attention to the wooden headboard resting against the wall. To the naked eye, the surface appeared clean, but the heavy scent of chemical cleaning agents lingered in the stagnant air of the room. Technicians deployed chemical radents designed to detect trace biological materials invisible to standard lighting. The reaction illuminated the dark truth, revealing microscopic organic residue embedded deep within the wood grain. This forensic finding proved that a catastrophic event occurred right where Lori slept. During the systematic search of the room, investigators also located a hidden .22 caliber weapon. They carefully documented the firearm, securing it in an evidence box for immediate ballistic testing. The pieces of the physical puzzle rapidly formed a terrifying picture of domestic betrayal. While the forensic team dismantled the bedroom, patrol units initiated a grid search of the surrounding neighborhood blocks. Officers systematically checked the narrow alleys, commercial refuse bins, and dense foliage behind local businesses. The July sun beat down on the pavement, amplifying the heavy fallow doors emanating from the metal waste containers. Behind a nearby church just a short distance from the apartment complex, officers made a pivotal discovery. They opened the heavy lid of a commercial dumpster and found a large, discarded mattress shoved carelessly inside. Detectives immediately recognized the item as the original mattress from the master bedroom. The fabric bore massive dark stains that seeped deep into the inner springs, confirming the immense scale of the trauma inflicted. Crime scene investigators arrived at the alleyway and carefully extracted the heavy item from the refuse bin. They photographed every angle of the fabric, documenting the exact location and the nature of the biological evidence. The discovery destroyed any remaining shred of the fabricated narrative. The husband spent his morning actively disposing of the most incriminating piece of physical evidence he possessed. The police now held undeniable proof of a fatal encounter, but they still lacked the most crucial element of the case. They needed to locate the young mother and her unborn child to bring formal charges against the perpetrator. The mounting pressure of the forensic discoveries triggered a severe psychological reaction in the suspect. On the night of July 20, Mark stayed at a local motel where his worried family gathered to await news of the search. Deep in the night, he slipped away from his relatives and wandered alone into the dark streets of the city. Dispatchers began receiving bizarre calls from concerned motorists navigating the downtown corridors. Witnesses reported seeing an unclothed adult male sprinting erratically through the roadways, completely unresponsive to passing vehicles. Patrol officers responded to the intersections and apprehended the man under the glow of the sodium streetlights, quickly identifying him as the primary suspect in the massive missing person case. Assessing his severe mental distress, law enforcement transported him directly to the psychiatric ward of the University of Utah Medical Center. Doctors placed him under a mandatory medical hold, restricting his access to the outside world and securing him behind locked hospital doors. The psychiatric commitment created an immediate complex legal barrier for the investigative team. The detectives possessed a mounting mountain of circumstantial evidence, but they could not legally access or interrogate a suspect undergoing active mental health evaluation. Medical privacy laws shielded him from aggressive police questioning, forcing the investigators to pause their direct pursuit. The man who orchestrated years of elaborate lies now hid behind the rigid protocols of the healthcare system. The mandatory psychiatric hold forced the Salt Lake City Police Department to rely entirely on meticulous procedural work. Detectives utilized this mandatory waiting period to solidify their case file, knowing they faced a significant jurisdictional and legal challenge. Without a confession and without locating the victim, defense attorneys could easily argue the physical evidence remained purely circumstantial. The investigators spent the following days categorizing the biological samples recovered from the wooden headboard and the discarded mattress. They coordinated with state laboratory technicians, expediting the testing protocols to match the samples definitively to the missing woman. Meanwhile, the search and rescue teams officially suspended their operations in Memory Grove Park, shifting their focus to municipal waste management facilities. Detectives interviewed sanitation workers, tracking the specific garbage truck routes that serviced the church dumpster on the morning of July 19. They learned that the refuse trucks emptied their payloads at the massive Salt Lake County landfill just hours after the incident. The realization presented the department with an agonizing logistical nightmare. Finding a single person inside thousands of tons of compacted, shifting waste required an unprecedented mobilization of heavy machinery and hazardous material teams. The investigators mapped out the specific sectors of the landfill, preparing for a grueling, dangerous excavation. They stood ready, waiting for the locked doors of the psychiatric ward to finally open. The locked doors of the psychiatric facility at the University of Utah Medical Center offered a sterile, isolated environment away from the media frenzy. The psychiatric hold prevented law enforcement from conducting any standard interrogations. The investigators could only wait outside the legal barrier while the suspect received medical evaluations. On July 24, 2004, 2 visitors arrived at the secure ward seeking answers. Mark Hacking sat in a sparse hospital room receiving a visit from his older brothers. The brothers demanded the truth regarding the mountain of circumstantial evidence discovered by the police. Cornered in the clinical space, the elaborate masquerade collapsed. Mark broke his silence and detailed the final hours of his wife. He confessed that a heavy argument occurred after Lori uncovered his fabricated university records. He waited until she fell into a deep sleep in their master bedroom. He then retrieved the .22 caliber rifle hidden in the apartment and inflicted fatal injuries upon her in the dark. He described wrapping her remains in heavy plastic refuse bags to conceal the act. He transported her out of the complex and deposited her body into the commercial dumpster behind the local church. The siblings listened in absolute horror as the brother they trusted dismantled their entire family reality. The brothers left the medical facility and rushed to contact the Salt Lake City Police Department. They relayed the entire grim confession to the lead detectives, providing the necessary probable cause to bypass the medical hold. Law enforcement officers arrived at the hospital, placing Mark under formal arrest for first-degree felony charges. The arrest brought a sudden end to the frantic public search efforts spanning the canyon trails. The focus of the entire city shifted from a missing person rescue to a grim recovery mission. The detailed confession confirmed the exact disposal route of the refuse bags. This admission initiated an agonizing, complex mathematical forensic challenge for the investigative team. The specific commercial dumpster emptied into sanitation trucks on the morning of July 19. Those trucks unloaded their cargo at the massive Salt Lake County landfill, a sprawling industrial complex spanning hundreds of acres on the western edge of the valley. The facility processed thousands of tons of municipal waste every single day. Locating a specific set of plastic bags within the compacted layers required unprecedented logistical coordination. Detectives established a precise perimeter based on global positioning system data from the specific sanitation truck that serviced the church route. They ordered the halting of all new garbage deposits in that designated sector. The command staff assembled teams of dedicated searchers, preparing them for a grueling excavation process. The physical reality of the landfill search subjected the investigators to brutal environmental conditions. During the peak heat of August and September, the sun baked the shifting mounds of compacted refuse. Search teams donned heavy hazardous material suits, respirators, and thick protective gloves. Heavy excavators removed the top layers of garbage, peeling back tons of debris one bucket at a time. Once the machines exposed a new layer, the human searchers stepped forward with metal rakes and specialized tracking dogs. They sifted through the rotting waste hour after hour, battling swarms of insects and toxic odors. The massive scale of the operation required specialized funding and dedicated security details to preserve the integrity of the active crime scene. The weeks dragged on without success, testing the physical endurance and the psychological resolve of the entire department. The exhaustive effort yielded a tragic breakthrough on October 1, 2004. The mechanical excavator unearthed a specific section of compacted debris containing heavy plastic refuse bags. Searchers recognized the exact materials described in the hospital confession inside the bags. Investigators made the grim discovery they spent months seeking. Forensic odontologists rushed to the medical examiner facility to analyze the recovered human remains. By comparing the specific jaw structure to existing dental records, authorities identified the remains as Lori Hacking. The recovery of the physical remains provided the state prosecution team with an insurmountable mountain of evidence. The district attorney prepared to present the retail receipts, the biological material from the apartment, and the undeniable landfill discovery. The physical proof eliminated any possibility of a defense strategy built on reasonable doubt. The forensic links connecting the apartment bedroom to the exact disposal site left the suspect with zero legal escape routes. Faced with this overwhelming factual record, the defense counsel recognized the futility of a jury trial. The legal proceedings commenced inside the imposing stone architecture of the Matheson Courthouse in downtown Salt Lake City. On April 15, 2005, Mark stood before the presiding judge in a packed, silent courtroom. He waived his right to a trial and entered a formal guilty plea to the highest degree of criminal charges. This legal maneuver spared the grieving family from enduring weeks of graphic testimony and grueling cross-examinations. The judge accepted the plea, scheduling the formal sentencing hearing for a later date to allow the state to prepare victim impact statements. The swift admission of guilt closed the active investigative phase of the case. Detectives who spent thousands of hours searching the canyon and the landfill watched from the gallery. They witnessed the ultimate triumph of their meticulous procedural work. The pathological liar, who spent years fabricating a fake life, now faced the rigid, undeniable consequences of the justice system. The courtroom reached full capacity on June 6, 2005, for the final sentencing hearing. Security personnel lined the wooden-paneled walls, maintaining strict order among the massive media presence and the divided families. Thelma Soares, the mother of Lori, approached the central podium to address the court. She delivered a powerful, devastating statement detailing the profound betrayal inflicted upon her daughter. She articulated the deep emotional void left by the theft of her child and her unborn grandchild. She stared at the perpetrator, ensuring he heard the full magnitude of the destruction he orchestrated. She described the bright future her daughter worked so hard to build, a future stolen in the middle of the night. The entire gallery remained completely still as she finished her poignant remarks. Following the emotional testimony, the presiding judge addressed the defendant, condemning his calculated deception and his lethal actions, under the specific indeterminate sentencing guidelines of Utah law. The judge lacked the authority to impose a natural life sentence without parole. Instead, the judge handed down the maximum possible penalty allowed under the statute. He sentenced Mark to a minimum of 6 years up to a maximum of life in the state penitentiary. Bailiffs placed heavy metal handcuffs on the defendant, the metallic clicks echoing through the silent room. They escorted him out through a side door, transferring him into the custody of the state correctional system. The final determination of the prison term fell to the authority of the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. In July 2005, the board conducted a comprehensive review of the case file, the forensic reports, and the psychiatric evaluations. Recognizing the extreme severity of the domestic betrayal and the loss of 2 lives, the board issued a definitive ruling. They decreed that the inmate would not receive his first parole hearing until August 1, 2034. This administrative decision guaranteed he would remain locked behind concrete walls for at least 3 decades. The ruling provided the grieving relatives with a measure of administrative closure, ensuring the perpetrator would spend his prime years in a prison cell. The parole board recognized the ongoing threat posed by a man capable of such sustained deception. In the aftermath of the legal conclusion, the family of Lori Soares channeled their immense grief into systemic action. They established memorial funds and partnered with local organizations to amplify domestic violence awareness across Utah. They spoke in public spaces about the subtle red flags of coercive control and pathological lying. Their advocacy provided vital resources for individuals trapped in deceptive and dangerous relationships. The memory of Lori endures as a testament to hard work, genuine love, and unwavering dedication. The tragedy stands as one of the most notorious criminal cases in the history of the state. It remains a chilling reminder of the dark, lethal reality that can hide behind the mask of a perfect marriage